We are, yeah, we're recording. So this is September 12th. I'm doing a review video that is after a lesson that we didn't even really do a problem as hard in second period, so we never really even got to it. It was one of the, like there was an example that's hard, but there were no practice problems this hard. So unfortunately, we didn't get to do one. I was thinking there would be one this hard in the practice problems, but there really wasn't. And then in fourth period, when we tried to do it, we struggled a lot. We had, virtually no idea what was going on for I think most people. And then in fifth period, it wasn't quite as bad. They seemed to be a little more okay with it, even though it was still not easy. So I'm doing this video just as a review for all classes. I've told every class you need to go watch this video because we don't have time to do a whole lot more on it in class. So it's telling us some different things here. The first thing is that we have two angles that are complementary. So right there, it says two complementary angles, but and we're doing word problems. So this is like word problems in geometry. Probably one of the most difficult things we're going to do is word problems in geometry, right up there with proofs probably. So we know right now we have two angles, right? We'll just call it angle one, angle two, and they are unknown. They don't give us the measure of either of them. So angle one and angle two, no idea what the measure is for either of them. So we're going to have to use some variables. Now, I could just say, oh, well, that's just X and that's Y. That's correct. They're both variables. They're both unknown. So we could use two different variables. But based on what I underlined, and I'm not going to do a full lesson on it, but complementary means they add up to 90. And if I try to create an equation with X plus Y equals 90, I can't solve that. Two variables, one equation, I cannot solve that. So I need some way to replace this variable, or really either of them, but I'm going to focus on the Y. I need some way to replace this variable and show the second angle. So show this second angle down here using the variable X. So basically using the first angle. That's where this piece comes in. It tells us, and I'm not going to worry about larger and smaller, but it tells us one angle is 5 more than the measure of the other angle. So one is going to be smaller, one is going to be larger. That doesn't really matter. You're just going to have two numbers, and obviously one number will be smaller, one number will be larger. So somehow I have to use, if I'm considering angle one, and I told you in class, always just start by making one of the angles X. It's an unknown, just make it X. Then figure out what maybe we can do to that X to represent, I knew that was going to happen, to represent the second angle. Like, for example, I'll just give you, and again, ignore this problem. If I had two numbers, 4 and 7, well, I could use 4 to represent 7 by saying, well, this number here, that number is 3. So this is number 1, number 2. So just say that's number 1. This is the second number, number 2. The second number, so this number here, is 3 more than the first number. So the second number is 3 more than the first number. I'm going to give you another quick example, and then I'll move on. I could also do something and say, well, what if I had these two numbers? Again, this is the first number, second number. I could represent those by saying the second number is 2 times the first number. Because again, if I take the first number and I multiply it times 2, I get the second number. 4 times 2 is 8. So what we're trying to do is take this X right here And we're trying to say, well, what could we do to that to get to the second number? And that's how we use all that stuff in blue. So now, the one that's easier to use is the part where it says 4 times the other angle. It says smaller angle, but it just means the other angle. So we're considering this blue area and we're kind of starting with the 4 times. Well, if we're saying that this angle number 1 is going to be the bigger angle, it's going to be 4 times. Actually, it's not going to be the bigger angle. X will wind up being the smaller angle. So we're saying the one angle, just ignore bigger and smaller. One angle is 4 times the other, well, 5 more than 4 times the other. We can go ahead and say down here, okay, well, we got to multiply this one by 4 for sure. That's one thing we know we have to do because the one angle is going to be larger, which means it's going to be multiplied times 4. So now we got to figure out what to do with that 5. It says 5 more, so there would be a way to figure out where it goes. But again, in 5th period, this didn't work in 4th. In 5th period, we said, well, you know what? We could just guess and put it somewhere. And if we do the wrong thing, then we'll know because when we get the final answers and we go back to just try to make sure that they work out based on the word problem, it won't work. The final answers won't match with this part in blue right here. So the numbers we get won't match up with that statement right there if we put the +5 in the wrong spot. So I'm going to go ahead and say +5 here. I'm just guessing. I know it's got to be +5 because 5 more than something means something +5. Again, 11 is 5 more than 6. So I'm just saying 6 + 5. So that's the concept. I know somewhere in there there's a +5. So I'm going to guess +5 goes here. That was a horrible 5. So now we have our two littles. We know, again, this still applies. We know that they have to add up to 90 based on that statement. So we just say, all right, well, angle 1. So that's angle 1 plus angle 2 has to add up to 90. And now we have to do the algebra. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I have plenty of room. That's probably enough. So we have like terms there, x's. So if I have 1x and then I add 4 more x's to it, I get 5x. And then that is +5 equals 90. Now I want to solve for x. So I subtract 5, subtract 5. It's just a two-step equation, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. 5x equals 85. And then we get x equal, we divide by 5 on both sides. Divide by 5. X equals, what is that? 117, it looks like. So x equals 17. Now here's the key, just like in all of geometry, don't stop once you get the x, because that may not be what we're looking for. We're looking for the measure of these two angles. We want to know, what do these measure? That's what the problem's asking. Well, neither of the angles is just measures x. One angle measures x plus 5. So if I add 5 to x, change color. So this angle would be 22. Again, I'm just taking 17, putting it here, plus 5. So that angle should be 22. And then I'm going to take 7. Do not just subtract that from 90. That doesn't work because you're not using the equations you set up, which is what might be incorrect. If you just subtract it from 90, it could wind up looking like it works, but it's because you didn't plug it in. You just subtracted from 90. So 4x means 4 times x. Well, x is 17. So now I'm going to do the math on that, which is what? 40 plus 28, 68. All right. So if I did this, so those are the two measures, and they do add up to 90, so that works. So I got that part right. But they should also, again, going back to this blue, oh, I didn't do it in blue. Why is that not blue? I just clicked on blue. That's weird. Let's try that again. There. So going back to this blue statement, one angle should be 5 more than 4 times the other angle. So again, I know I got to multiply the smaller one by 4. So here, let's kind of make a area. I'll do what color? Black now. Let's go to black. So I'll do this other area down here. Zoom out even more. So we know that the bigger angle is gonna, or the smaller angle is gonna have to be multiplied times 4. We know that's in that statement where it says 4 times the smaller angle. So we're gonna take the smaller angle and multiply it times 4. So 22 is the smaller angle, 22 times 4, and we get 88. So we then read the rest, or not the rest of it really, it's actually before that. So it's saying the larger angle is 5 more. So the larger angle is 68. So it says the larger angle is 5 more than 4 times the smaller angle. Well, this right here is 4 times the smaller angle. We just took the smaller angle and multiplied it by 4. So that is 4 times the smaller angle right there. So this number down here, we'll go to blue again. This number down here, which is the bigger angle, should be 5 more than 88, because that's 4 times the smaller angle. Well, clearly it's not. 68 is not 5 more than 88. It's not 5 more than 4 times the smaller angle. So that is incorrect. Those numbers don't work. So we guessed that we should put the plus 5 with that, and it didn't work. So now we just kind of say, okay, well, if that didn't work, I'm going to go ahead and change it around. Here, let me do this so I can be a little more detailed with my erasing. So if that didn't work, I'm going to come back and I'm going to say, all right, well, let me do the plus 5 down here. Now, it seems like, oh my goodness, I got to go back and do all that work again. I know that's probably what any of you watching just said, especially some of you, right? You know who you are. So it doesn't even really change that much at all. The only thing it really does is if I've now said 4x plus 5 instead of just x plus 5, this kind of goes away because it's no longer x plus 5. I just kind of now replace the 4x with 4x plus 5. Keep doing it in green. So all I did is really just shuffle the order of the equation. That's the same equation I had before. If you look at the next line down right here, that's still the same correct equation. We add the two x-like terms, so we still have the same 4x and x. We add them together, so we get the same exact thing. When we go down and we solve for x, we get the same exact thing for x. We'll get 17. Nothing changes with the value of x. What changes is how we created the angles. Instead of having x plus 5, now the measure of the smaller angle, angle 1, is 17. So that's the measure of that angle. The measure of the bigger angle I have to calculate. So I would say 17 times 4 is what? Well, I already did it before, so it's 40, 68. So 68 plus 5 is 73. Now, again, if you add them up, they equal 90. So that part works out. So I did that correctly. Now, though, I got to see this part down here that I'm about to erase. I got to, oh, that's not, why is that not erasing? That is so weird. Still not erasing. There we go. That weird. Oh my. All right. So now let's see if the bigger angle is 5 more than 4 times the smaller angle. So first start by saying, okay, well, first let me do the 4 times the smaller angle. So the smaller angle is 17. I need to multiply that by 4. And I've already said before, that gives me 68. So the smaller angle times 4 is 68. The bigger angle we said is 73. We saw for that over here. That's what we got for the bigger angle. So is 73 5 more? So again, that's the bigger angle. Is that bigger angle 5 more than 4 times the smaller angle? Well, yeah, it is. 73 is 5 more than 68. So now we know we did it right. So again, we just kind of guessed at where to put the plus 5. If you do it wrong, you just have to go back and check your rules. What rules are you needing to satisfy? So I'm running out of space, but this was the rule here that we had to satisfy. We got the 90, we got this thing right like every time, so that didn't really matter. We always got that right. But we need to check this highlighted thing right here and see whether or not our bigger angle was 5 more than 4 times the smaller angle. So hopefully going through it a second time, I don't know that was slower, but at least you can pause it and go back. Checking it at the end is the important part. Like this is 4 times the smaller angle, so we got 68. Now we just say, okay, well, is the bigger angle, which we calculated out to be 73, is that bigger angle 5 more than 4 times the smaller angle? Yes, it is. Practice, practice, practice. That's the only way you're going to get word problems down. Like I said in class, a lot of it is reading comprehension. So the more of them you try, the better your reading comprehension will get.